Everyday Juggler, your source for juggling highlights, interviews, tutorials, and reviews. And now your host, Sean Livingston.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Everyday Juggler Profiles. Today we get to hang out with Phil Thompson. Thanks so much for being with us. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been juggling, and what you're most excited about when it comes to juggling right now.
Yeah, so I'm Phil. I'm from the Twin Cities area of Minnesota, about 20 minutes south of Minneapolis. I currently go to school at the University of North Dakota. I'm a second-year student there studying aviation. And let's see, I got involved in juggling. I could juggle 3 balls when I was a younger kid. I don't know exactly when I started, but I got real serious into it about 3.5 years ago. I started picking it up, and I got involved with YouTube and started learning all sorts of things. And I found out about site swap soon after I restarted juggling, and I loved it. Fell in love, started wanting to push my personal limits, as well as just learn new things, and just see what's out there, see if I could make some new things. I think everyone wants to do that and do it in their own way. So that's the reason basically why I think I've stuck with juggling to this point.
So you said you knew how to juggle young, but do you remember how it started, or you just kind of always knew?
No, I think when I was just a kid, probably single digits in age, I asked my parents for some juggling balls, and to be honest, I have no idea why. I got 3, and I learned 3, and really didn't move much past the Cascade. And then I gave a speech actually in my junior year. It was in September. That's when I did a paper bag speech. I think that's pretty common. And I had an item from the past, present, and future. And the past was a juggling ball, the present was a golf club, and the future was an airplane. It's kind of funny because they still kind of hold true. I was playing golf at the time, and of course when I held up my juggling balls, they weren't content with me just showing them the props. They wanted to see a little demo, and I did that, and I went home at the end of the day, and I was like, man, why did I stop this juggling thing? I hadn't gotten too far, but I just was reminded how fun it was. And immediately I went onto YouTube, looked up a video. I looked up videos that I could, tricks that I might be able to emulate soon, and started watching those, as well as what all the crazy guys were doing, and just kind of for some inspiration. That's really what got me into juggling.
Okay, and that was just a few years ago, right?
Yep, just over 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, well, actually, I just want to touch back on that. That's pretty funny that, not funny, but it's interesting that you kind of forgot, and then like when you're performing, you're like, dang, this is awesome. What have I been doing? Do you think that the performance aspect of that had anything to do with that? Like kind of being in front of people?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it helped me kind of capture it because I was so focused on what I was doing, and I hadn't really performed ever, so it was a new experience. And to be honest, I don't really enjoy performing that much. I do it when I can, and I enjoy it when I do it, but mostly I just like to do it in the gym. But maybe it was the thing that kind of kick-started me getting back into juggling.
Mm-hmm. So when you got home and were looking up YouTube stuff, what videos did you stumble upon first where you're like, man, I got to learn to do that?
Let's see. So the one video that stuck out to me, I think it was not endorsed, not the word. It was being advertised all over the place. I can't remember what the word is, but it was this 10 difficult 3-ball tricks or something like that.
Okay.
And the guy was juggling glow balls. I think it has a little over 100,000 views. And he did 10 tricks. And I'm sure if you typed it into YouTube, you could find it right away. And that's the video that I remember as being the one that was like, all right, now I'm going to town. And then as for like the video that I could emulate soon, or for the tricks I could do soon, and I remember stumbling upon the WJF. I'm sure most viewers are familiar with that. And I remember I was watching the WJF 6 ball freestyle competition video. It was the first WJF video I watched, and I just thought all the tricks were just unbelievable, and that's, I think, what also gave me the inspiration to keep going. And if I were to pick a trick in particular that I was like, I want to do that so badly, it was 5 club back crosses. That was a trick that just blew me away, and just my biggest inspiration for a trick. Yeah.
So you started with balls, and then at what point did you switch over to clubs?
Let's see. So I think when I gave that speech my junior year of high school, I think I had a set of clubs. They were like really hard plastic one-piece clubs. They weren't like air flights or anything like that. They were no good. So I think I had them, but I actually started juggling clubs probably 6 months to a year after I restarted juggling. So I had a little head start with balls, but that's about when I got around to juggling clubs. And I felt like after a year and a half, I felt like they were really lagging. So in the last 1.5 to 2 years, I've been trying to bring up my technical skill with clubs to where I feel that my balls are at. And I still don't juggle rings all that much. I would like to in the future. I've had a couple sets, and some of them have broken. That kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth. But I don't know. I just don't enjoy juggling them as much. And if it's not fun, then why do it? I don't do it for a living. I don't really compete necessarily. If there was a competition down the road, I'd enter. But it's not something that I chase after. So clubs and balls, that's mainly where it's at for me.
So it sounds like from what you're saying that you're really like highly self-motivated. You see what you want to do and you get it done. Has a community of jugglers played any part in where you're at today?
Absolutely. I like setting goals. I have a list of goals, and each year I write a new list, things that I could focus on in the short term, less than a month or two, and then the mid, and then, past a year. So that's kind of the self-motivation aspect. I just like setting out for things and then accomplishing them. I think it's really rewarding. But as for the community of jugglers, I would say, YouTube was the main way that I got into it. So I met people through YouTube, and that was the first way that I kind of got into the juggling community. I met someone who was in my just over YouTube. His name's Adam LeMay, and we started chatting and sending videos back and forth, and we just kind of started talking. We're like, oh, where are you from? Minnesota. And he's like, oh, Minnesota too. And it turns out he lived, just 30 minutes away. So
Awesome.
It was just a crazy connection. And past YouTube, then I got onto the Facebook group Juggling Rock, and just the exchange of juggling content I found to be really, really great. Because where I'm at, there was not really a juggling club very close, so I pretty much juggled in my house and in my gym exclusively. So if I didn't have the juggling community, or at least someone to share it with, then I don't think I'd have continued juggling at all.
Awesome. That's a really awesome coincidence too. I've found, I feel similarly. There's only one club within like 100 miles of me, and it's not really that close. So I've found the online communities to be really helpful, and it's cool to kind of see what everybody else is doing. There is something about being able to juggle with people that I wish I had more access to, but what can you do?
Yeah.
All right, so I was wondering, it seems to me like you've progressed pretty fast in 3 years, and based on what you're telling me, as I said, you're self-motivated. It sounds like you're really disciplined. So what does your normal practice time look like, and how do you make time to do that?
Yeah, so first I'll describe how I practiced early on in juggling, and then I'll explain kind of more recently in the last year and a half, because it's changed a little bit. But originally, when I practiced, I would kind of just pick up the juggling balls and just kind of throw them around. right around the time when I started learning how to juggle the 5-ball cascade. I knew what drills were. I had seen some practice techniques, but for the most part, I just picked them up and tried to do a long endurance run every time. And towards the end, I realized the importance of doing shorter controlled runs and how that really has a noticeable impact on a person's improvement. So I started doing some of that, but still for, year and a half, I pretty much just winged it. And I made progress for sure, just through the sheer amount of time I put into it. But as far as like having a clean, organized practice structure, it was definitely not there. But as of lately, I would say that I juggle at school here about 2 hours a day, 5 days a week is about right. Some days I'll juggle all 7 days. Some days it's 4, but it averages out to that. And I normally start with a good warm-up. I stretch my wrists. Once you get into some of the higher numbers, it's really important to keep your wrists in good condition, because a lot of jugglers get carpal tunnel. So that's one thing that I've been wanting to prevent. So I get warmed up, and obviously I said it's -8 degrees up here in North Dakota earlier, and so I'm not coming in very loose. So the long warm-up is really important. And I just go through some rudimentary things, try to do tricks or patterns that I can do consistently, and then I move into the things that I am working on. And I have those written down on my phone, and I usually spend anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes on each trick or pattern. And if I'm seeing great improvement, that is good, and I will stop that after 5 or 10 minutes because it will be just as good the next day. And if I'm not seeing improvement, guess what? I stop after 5 or 10 minutes, because why ingrain bad habits? So that 5 to 10 minute philosophy per thing has been really helpful. Sometimes I'll go for flashes or short runs depending on the pattern or trick. Always working on consistency and the cleanliness of my patterns, if you will. And even though it's boring, the drills, man, they really help. I'm not a huge fan of the training drills, like taking a trick and breaking it down super small and then working with those. I'm more of a fan of flashing things over and over again with the full trick and then building up from there. Certain tricks are different, so I treat them differently, but I find that breaking it down and flashing and getting consistent is better. Learning to not drop is a skill, and it takes time to develop.
That's like some really great insight of your 5 to 10 minute rule. Did you learn that anywhere, or did you come up with that on your own?
No, well, I don't know that anyone has specifically said 5 to 10 minutes is some magic number, but I know that Anthony Gatto, when he was practicing and being taught, that's some of the philosophy that Nick Gatto used with him was, if it's good, it'll be good tomorrow. If it's not good, don't ingrain bad habits. We'll work on it tomorrow. And I think that's really true. And, if you look at like a performance curve, how you see improvement early on, and then the more and more and the better and better you're trying to get, it takes more and more time to get there. And even within in a practice session, you start to lose a little concentration with a trick, or it just becomes less beneficial as you go on. So that 5 to 10 minutes has really worked for me. Although if people find that other things work really well, this is a personal thing, and everyone learns a little bit differently. So I think integrating some of the philosophy with one's own preferences is ideal.
Totally. Yeah, I think for me, like I'm one of those people that has a lot of trouble stopping something until I get it. Like with anything, not just juggling. Like if I'm fixing something around the house, or if my computer is acting up, and I don't know, maybe I guess I don't get viruses, but if something's wrong, it's like I'll spend hours on it until it's done.
Yep.
But with juggling, the fact is, after a while, your arms are tired, and you're not throwing consistently, so it's really impossible for you to practice something well. But it's hard to deal with that, and to want to do it.
And that resting thing that you mentioned is key. I think that if you're dropping, immediately picking back up and trying again and failing, just set the props down for 15 to 30 seconds and just, relax a bit and then try again. That's really important. Psychologically you think, oh, the more tries I get, the better I'll be. But it doesn't work that way. You need to be 100% for each attempt,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very important.
So a big part of your juggling story was YouTube, and just browsing your YouTube channel, you have a ton of videos. Most recently, you're doing 3 Trick Thursday. I think you just posted your 43rd last week.
Yep, 43rd last week.
Posting videos every week, I know now is it's hard to do. How do you stay on top of that?
Yeah, I try to get it posted like 3 days early and then have it scheduled out. That way, if I make a mistake and miss it, I still have a couple days to quick film something and put it up there. But, it just, since I'm at the gym most days, usually I'll try to get my camera out there for at least a few minutes and try to catch something. With the 3 Trick Thursday series, I've done a lot of trick requests. So with those, early on in the week, I'll start to practice them because oftentimes they require a skill set or a type of throw that I'm not familiar with or consistent with. So I'll have to practice it a while and then I'll be able to film it later on. However, if a trick, I just don't film for more than 5 or 10 minutes. If it's going to take me a half hour, it's not an efficient use of my time. So I feel bad for the requests I can't get to, but you got to pick and choose a little bit.
Well, eventually you'll get to them.
That's right. That's right.
When you started the 3 Trick Thursday, what was the intention behind it?
So it's funny. I posted the first one, and I don't know if I changed the title to 3 Trick Thursday #1, but when it came out, it was 3 Trick Thursday. That was it. And it was just a Thursday. I had filmed 3 tricks, and I was like, all right, 3 Trick Thursday. That sounds good. And my friend Noah Schmeisner, he has a YouTube channel, but doesn't post many videos. So if you go subscribe to him, go bug him. But Noah and I are good buddies. And he texted me or sent me a message of some sort and said, dude, you should do that as a series. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. 3 tricks a week. It's doable. It's not like 10 tricks or something. So I did number 2 and number 3. And then I started getting a few messages of people saying, oh, are you going to keep this up? And I was like, sure. And people have been pretty responsive to it, so it's kind of fun, and it's fun I always enjoyed when a juggler would post videos on a consistent basis because you have something to look forward to. So I think that's part of the reason why it's been well received.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that posting those videos every week has impacted how you juggle?
Let's see. It has. A little bit, at least. I know some of the tricks that I've done are a style that I'm not familiar with. And I, like I said, I'm mostly a technical juggler, and I think some of the tricks that I've done have made me really appreciate more of like the artistic styles of juggling. I don't do them and have that much interest in doing them myself, but I think it's like I really enjoy watching a lot of the newer jugglers or jugglers who are kind of transitioning into that more inventive style of juggling. And in that way, it's like changed me in my perspective. As for like my own juggling, I think that I included an overhead trick, and someone requested something in overheads with balls. And I did that trick, and then I really started practicing overheads after that, and I've improved quite a bit, and I've gained some consistency with a lot of my overhead connections with balls. And so I think that's probably the biggest trick or style that I've been influenced by as it relates to 3 Trick Thursday.
But overall, it's really kind of challenged you to learn things you never would have learned before.
Exactly. Yeah. At first, when I got a request that I was like, man, I don't want to do this, and then I'd go, you know what, wait, this is probably a good thing. So I'd go and try something I wouldn't otherwise try. And that has been really cool because not only do I get to do something that someone else requested, it also expands my horizons, you know.
And then you were saying a side benefit to it is also being able to appreciate those other styles then.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
hmm
So for what you like to do, or what would you say your favorite type of juggling is?
Well, it changes slightly, but I'll just talk about maybe three things that I've enjoyed lately. The first, and what I've probably worked the hardest on the last 8 to 10 months, has been club back crosses. I think I'd have to check, but it was probably about 8 to 10 months ago. I could not even do a flash of 3 club back crosses, and I spent my time in my dorm room just practicing over and over again, doing drills to improve back crosses. And then I was like, oh, I can incorporate this into some 4 club stuff, or just get more consistent. And then that built, and now I'm doing some runs with 5 club back crosses, which, as I said before, was one of the tricks that inspired me to juggle in the first place. So that's one style. I guess back crosses are a pretty significant type of throw. So that's one of the things. Overheads I already mentioned as being something that I've started to learn to get better at as a result of 3-Trick Thursday. And let's see, the third, if I were to pick a third, I would have to say club shower work, both half shower and full shower. I'd never really worked on that. And if I did, it was in the conventional throw as opposed to like a flat front where you're throwing it laterally. So as an observer would see from the front, you would see the whole club spinning perpendicular to review. And I found those to be really fun. I'm looking forward to getting to a point where I could attempt 5-club half shower and be able to run that for a while. I think it's a really pretty trick, and I look forward to doing that at some point.
All right. When you are looking to learn something new, what are some tips you have? Like, what do you do that other people could use? So what are some tips you have for people looking to learn something new?
Okay. Well, the first step involves hardly any juggling at all. The first step is ask yourself and be honest. Am I ready to learn this trick? If you picked up the props and you were to try 10 times and it would just look terrible and there'd be no noticeable pattern going and everything would collide and just be a mess, probably not ready to start. So be honest with yourself. You want to allocate your time and your practice to things that will make you better. And if a person isn't ready to learn a certain trick, learning something simpler will allow them to learn the trick that they desire to learn even faster. So it's important to pick something that is within one's reach. And next, I would say watch a tutorial, or if none is available, if it's something a little more specialized, then just visually and mentally break down the trick or pattern in your head and think, what are the things that I have to keep in mind? Is this trick going to be collision prone? How would I avoid that? What are some common mistakes that I'm going to encounter? How can I structure my practice in order to improve this? Are there exercises that I can use? Can I break the trick down? And even if you don't spend a whole lot of time with the exercises, sometimes just spending a day or two on them can be really beneficial. And then past that, I'd say start the drills. I know a person needs to keep juggling fun, so if drills are just out of the question, then don't do drills, because if you don't like juggling, you're not going to improve. But if you can tolerate drills, or drills for maybe half of the practice, practice some of those and start flashing, start slowly building it up. It's redundant, and there's really not a whole lot of magic involved. It's just a lot of attempts.
Awesome. Great advice. With the first one, say you try something and you can't get it after, would you say 10 times is a good number, or even less if you can't get it after like 5 times at all?
Yeah, I think it would depend on the trick. For example, if it's a huge trick or a 360 trick, if that's something that a person does, if it's like super visual or super big, and it's just kind of I want to get this once to be done, or once to get it on video and be done, then judge it a little differently. But say you're just going from 5-ball cascade, you just kind of finished up learning that, and you're thinking, I think I want to learn half shower or 744 for those who are familiar with site swap. Um, if you try, 10 times and you just go, man, it's really not there. Either start with exercises with 4 balls or maybe just wait a while. I've gone away from tricks and then come back to them several times, 5-ball overheads being one of them, and one day it's just going to kind of click and you're going to go, okay, why did I just like almost have a pattern there? And then you go, okay, now it's ready. And I think everyone kind of knows. They have their own little meter in their head, and they can kind of figure out when it's time and when it's not. But it's just being honest with yourself is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, if somebody's more towards the beginner level and they try something and they realize they can't do it and they need to learn some simpler stuff, where's a good resource, or where should they look to learn some simpler tricks?
Well, we already mentioned YouTube, and that's where they'll most likely be watching this video. So YouTube's a great place to look. Also, there's a juggling library. I'm not sure what the URL is for that, but I'm pretty sure if you search that into Google, you could find it. There's a lot of really cool tricks that are on there, and they have some animated juggler doing a bunch of different tricks. Pretty much all the fundamental 3-ball tricks are on there. And those are probably the 2 best ways. Well, and a third would be if you're at a club or a convention, obviously, asking someone there would be probably even the best way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then they can kind of see who you are, because everybody's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how have you seen juggling change your life, or how has it affected your life?
Great question. Personally, I enjoy the improvement of whatever it is I'm doing. I play golf. I enjoyed improvement there. Instruments, school, anything. I'm never a fan of just arriving at a destination or finishing something and being like, all right, I'm done. I hate that. There's no fun in that. The journey, the work that gets put in, that's my favorite part. So juggling fits the bill perfectly because you're never done. There's always something new to learn, and that's part of the reason why I think I stuck with it. A second answer to your question on how it's really impacted me is I think when I was learning 5 balls, I would frequently look up like a frequently asked questions video on 5 balls of, I'd want to learn how fast can I learn this? When can I get my first run of 100 catches? How long does this and this and this usually take? And then I would do it faster than that. And then 6 balls. 6 balls, you can't learn that until 3, 4, 5, 6 years or whatever. And then I'd learn it faster than that. And then 7 balls, same thing. New trick, same thing. And after consistently doing things faster or learning something faster than someone would tell me that I could do it, just ingrained into my mind how anything that's within your reach that you put 100% effort towards, you can blow people away. And it's given me a lot of confidence. Like I said, I don't really like performing, so it's not like I love just putting on a show for people. It's been more of a personal thing. And like for classes, I'm in school now. Normally I don't get overwhelmed by schoolwork. I'm like, all right, let's just break this down into simpler steps. Let's do drills, if you will. And in that way, I think that juggling has been very, very impactful.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's going to continue to affect everything you do for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. How have you seen it affect other people's lives?
Well, my parents, I had to juggle in my house, and we had an entryway with a chandelier, and I always had to juggle around the chandelier so I wouldn't hit it. So I've affected my parents' walls at home. I've scraped them up. They painted it after I graduated, so it's all good.
That's awesome.
But I would say I've gotten one other person into juggling who still juggles off and on now, as far as affecting a specific person through actually learning to juggle. Past that, I've been able to share some of the things I've learned, like I am with you, what juggling has taught me, and how it's a great example for life, and that you could take the most coordinated athlete, doesn't matter, baseball, football, it doesn't matter, and you give them juggling props, five. I always use the example 5 balls. They can't. They just, no human being that I know of could ever possibly on the first try ever run a 5-ball cascade. Not possible, I don't think. Whereas, you take a coordinated football player and give him a baseball and a glove, he's probably going to look pretty decent, right? And you give the baseball player a football, he could run pass patterns, he could catch, he could throw. You'd look pretty coordinated. And I think juggling is so great because if you don't put in the time, you won't improve. But if you do, you will see results. And I think it's a great metaphor for school because oftentimes people use the excuse of, oh, I'm not as smart as someone else. Whereas if you approach it more like juggling, which I think is more accurate, if you put the time in with school or work or whatever stage of life a person is in, the hard work beats talent any day.
Mm-hmm. That's great. You are just full of great insight.
I do a lot of thinking.
All right, so a bunch of quick fire questions.
All right.
Jugglers you looked up to.
Steve Hogan, he has the Juggling Tricks YouTube channel, as well as I would say Doug Sayers also was a big motivator in juggling. I love the way his juggling looks.
All right. Favorite trick or pattern to do?
Favorite trick or pattern? I would say either 5 club back crosses or just running the 7-ball cascade. It doesn't get old.
All right, great. To watch?
Favorite trick to watch?
Mm-hmm.
5 club half shower.
All right. Favorite festival you've been to? Juggling festival.
Let's see. I'd say Mondo Juggling Festival 2014. I think I have a YouTube video out for that. It was a great weekend. Had some friends stay over at my house, and we commuted up to the venue each day. That was a fun weekend.
All right, great. What is
and
it?
MadFest, Mondo. Mondo's coming up this February 12th through the 14th, I believe. So if you're in the area, definitely come. So there's my plug.
What is it about Mondo that makes it so great?
Mondo, it's put on in a great place. They have enormously high ceilings. The lighting is good. They have a unicycle club there and a great show, a lot of variety, and it's a well-attended juggling festival. So if you want to learn from other jugglers or see different types of juggling and see a well-rounded group, Mondo's a great festival for that.
Okay. Favorite prop to use?
I'd have to go with balls.
Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that from your more recent 3 Trick Thursday videos. Favorite brand of prop?
Well, I make my juggling balls, so I probably can't pick them. So I'll probably just pick Play, because I use their clubs. Otherwise, Sportco's, because Cheryl Sayer is the one who makes Sportco's. She's amazing and very friendly, very good customer service. So I picked those as well.
Okay. We're going to come back to you making your own balls here in a second. What do you listen to when you practice?
I listen to a variety. Sometimes if I'm feeling tired, I'll listen to more upbeat techno or dubstep or like fast rock kind of music. Other times I'll listen to like pop music, that kind of thing.
All right. And your best practice tip for everybody? You already talked a lot, but if you could narrow it down to one.
Okay, one tip is the whole point of practice is to get better over time. If we were to learn a trick in one day, then we wouldn't have to focus so much on practice. So since this is a long-term thing, always arrange practices so that you have the best long-term outcome. So that's kind of a broad statement, but I think that people would know how to apply that to their own juggling.
Sure. Don't focus on right now, but focus on what you could be in the future.
Exactly. Sweating in a gym, getting one trick for 45 minutes is not a good use of practice time. And I have done that before many times.
Right. Okay, so you make your own balls. How do you do that? And tell us how to do it.
So I'll give cred to Joe Showers. He was the one who I learned how to do this from originally. I've made some modifications to it, but I went to theconnecticutstore.com, and they sell wiffle balls, the original wiffle ball company, and they sell them with no holes in them. Obviously, it wouldn't work quite so well if they had holes in them. And you order them. You can select how many you want, and then I take a drill into the balls, and then I fill them to the desired weight with salt, and they're white, and they are exactly baseball size. So if you want to know, they're a baseball wiffle ball. So if you want to see what size they are before you order them, just pick up, some baseballs. Obviously, they'll feel totally different, but if just for sizing purposes, that's how they are.
Okay. So once you fill them up with salt, how do you seal that hole back up?
So I've tried a number of methods, trying to improve each time. If a person has a soldering iron with an adjustable temperature, using that with a lower temperature works really well. If the temperature gets too high, it gets brittle and can break over time. But if you don't have a soldering iron that you can keep at a fairly low temperature, I've been currently using drilling it into the ball with just a clean hole, just drilling straight through it with a drill bit, and then taking a square piece of white electrical tape and just putting it right over the hole, and it works. Like, I did not think it would work. I've changed them. I started juggling the same set I'm using now over about a year and 3 months, and same balls, and I've only replaced the tape once. Wow. So it's pretty impressive.
Okay. I wouldn't think that wiffle balls would hold up for that long with, all that weight inside of them. But
yeah, they're this amazing material. They have just a tiny bit of flex. But if a person were to feel them, they'd think they felt hard. The plastic is probably an eighth of an inch thick or so. So it's not just like a play pit ball that some people use where it's paper thin. And I think that's part of the reason why they're so durable.
Right. I guess they have to be strong enough to withstand a child whacking it with a plastic bat.
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right. Well, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to share with us?
Let's see. Open-ended question.
That's my favorite kind.
I'd say that goals are the most important part of juggling, because you can have goals for tricks, or you can have goals that are related to fun. At the end of the day, juggling needs to be fun, but you can have goals that are almost quantifiable that can be related to fun. So I really encourage people to go to juggling conventions. I've been to a handful, and they've all been incredibly fun. And you'll be motivated for 2 months at least after any convention, because they're just so amazing. I can't even describe that enough. So that's it right there. But if a person's goal is to improve in a certain skill area with a certain prop, make goals for different time periods and stick to them and stick to your practice, because progress is fun for anyone, and there is a way to speed that process along, and that's part of the fun for me. So that's what I'd like to say.
Yeah. So go to juggling conventions and you'll get like a juggling spiritual high.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It'll light you up, and you'll want to change the world with your juggling.
Exactly. And then another thing that goes along with that, when I went to my first convention, I was scared. I didn't know anyone. It's just a little intimidating, because no matter where you go, there's always going to be some pretty high-level jugglers. And I would just encourage people to remember that if they know anything about the juggling community, it's extremely friendly. You could walk up to anyone, almost anyone, no matter what level, and if you ask them how to show you how to do a little 3-ball trick, they would do that. And just knowing that they're people, we're not celebrities. You just juggle, and the the best way to enjoy a festival experience is to meet people. That's the main difference from juggling by yourself. So why not interact with people?
Mm-hmm. All right. So if people want to see what you do, where can they find you?
So go to YouTube, type in Phil Thompson Juggling, or I think it's youtube.com/MISTER golfer number 7. I was going to use it as a golfing channel, but that's still the name. And feel free to subscribe, and I put out consistent videos, and I also try to keep the cinematography relatively decent. I don't like super blurry videos or bad lighting. I try to make sure the framing's right. So if either of those things sound good to you, feel free to swing on over.
And apparently you take requests, so
I do.
If anybody's itching to get something really technical done for them, Phil's your man.
That's right, yeah. Watch a couple videos, see the kinds of things I do, and go to a site swap generator and throw some numbers in, and I'll try to do it myself.
All right, well, you have the final word, so what's some words of advice to the juggling community at large?
Words of advice. I would say, well, I think I've already talked enough about keeping juggling fun. I guess I would encourage people, if they don't already, start talking to different jugglers, Facebook message them or talk to them, see what their interests are, talk to them as people. I found that almost every juggler has been extremely nice and just great people to talk to. So get to know people. The best way to continue juggling, if it's something that you would like to do for years into the future, is connect yourself with people, because if the only thing that you do with juggling is only juggle your own props, sooner or later you'll get tired of it. But if you have friends in juggling, you have a very good chance of continuing on.
All right. Great advice. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our time with Phil Thompson. Phil, thanks so much for being on and doing what you're doing on YouTube. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. No problem. Glad to be here.
And until next time, keep on juggling.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, be sure to support the channel. Leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe.